event logs. There's an about underscore event logs that describes all of that information for you. So that's how you get the information in the box. So using get-help or help, and then using the about files. Let's take a look at researching commands with get-command. We're going to do help, get-command, and that'll pull up the help file for get-command. So we can see we get our syntax here. It gives us a detailed description, related links, marks, all of the things that we would expect from help. I like to go straight to dash examples. So I'm going to put in the switch parameter for examples, and you see it gives us a bunch of examples for how to use the command. I love this. I think it's one of the best features in PowerShell. It makes it super easy for you to dive in and to start working with commands. And you're going to find the examples go from the most general to the most complex. So they give you a ton of different scenarios that you can walk through, and they give you background on how everything works. So if I want to see all of the commands that I have loaded on a system, I can do a get-command. We'll pipe that into more, and that'll start pulling up all of the commands. So you can see there's a ton of commands. So we've got aliases, functions. As we keep going through here, we'll finally get to the commandlets, because we have thousands of them that are built in here. As we keep going through here, you'll see there's a number of different, we get to the commandlets. So I'm going to Control C to exit out of the running command. So let's say I want to get the commands that are related to the verb new. I can do a get-command, type in the parameter -verb, click new, and you see it gives me a number of commands that are related to just new. So you can see here how we can go through and we can search through these. So let's say I want to see how many commands do I have in the system that are functions. So I put in -command type, put in function. I'm going to pipe that into another command called measure-object. And you can see there are 1,722 functions that are built in there. So there's a ton of functions that you can use within the system. So what I want to do is I want to find a command that's going to allow me to be able to work with IP address configurations. So we're going to do a get-command. For the name, I'm going to put in a search parameter, put in wildcard IP wildcard, and we'll go ahead and put that in. We see, oh, there is a ton of information there. So we see a number of different things that are in here. Net security. We see some IPAM server. We see some net controller. We see some net TCP IP. So a lot of different things related to net, which is probably networking. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to further refine this, and we're going to look for a module that starts with net. So maybe that'll refine that down for us. So we can see that, okay, it has further refined that down to us. And net TCP IP, that looks like probably a good module that might be what I'm looking for. So we'll go ahead and clear screen again here, and we'll go back up to our command, and then I could put TCP IP in here. And we see, there we go. So we have a list of functions that are available for us to work with net TCP IP. We see we've got a net IP address, net IP address configuration. We have ones for IPv4, IPv6. So we've really drilled down into to find what are the commands that we're looking for. Then at this point, what we would do is we would dive into, I'm guessing the get-net IP address might be the one we're looking for. So I'm going to go ahead and use our friend help, put in get-net IP address, and we see that that is a command that gives us the IP address configuration for IPv4, IPv6. If I wanted to see examples of how that works, I could put in the examples here, and it gives me examples of how to use the get-net IP address. Now let's go ahead and run that command to see what it does for us. We see that it does give us IP address information. So that's how we would go about using get-command to search for commands within PowerShell. In our next demo, you'll learn how to use built in commands for documenting your work in the console. Because a lot of times you'll be doing a lot of work and then you'll be like, hey, I want to keep track of all those commands that I just ran in there. Or you're running through a process and you're like, hey, I want to capture whatever the output is and if there's errors of stuff that's going on. So we're going to show you how to do that within the console. So the first thing what I'm going to do is I'm going to create a new directory called transcripts underneath the scripts directory. I'm using MD, which is short for make directory, and that's going to create a folder to store my stuff in. So now I want to investigate git-history. So we'll put in help git-history so that we can see what the command does. So it gives us the syntax, a description, everything that we would use for checking this out with help. So we see that we have some parameters that we can use. We can do an ID, we can do a count. So now what we want to do is let's take a look at the actual history that we have in our system. So if I type in git-history, it'll display the history of all of the commands that have been listed previous. So you'll see there's an ID and then the command line info there. Now what I can do is if I want to invoke, say number 24, say it's a really long command and I want to run it again, but I don't want to type it, I can do an invoke-history. I can put the ID number in and it'll go ahead and it'll run that command. So pretty cool how you can go through, hit that ID number and bring that command and have it run based off of the history. Then if I want to take a look at the history again, and I want to send that out to a file. So let's say I want to keep track of all these commands. So I've been running these commands and eventually they're going to make their way into a script. So instead of having to retype all of these, I can send these out to a text file. So I pipe this into out-file. Then when I go and open that file in Notepad, what we'll see is there are all of our commands. So if there were some of these commands I wanted, I could simply copy those and I could paste them into whatever scripting tool I'm utilizing for that. So quick and easy way for us to be able to output those from the PowerShell console into something that we could use as far as a document. Next, let's say we want to just clear our history and get rid of whatever's in there. I can just type in clear-history. And if I run git-history again, we'll see that our history is gone. So that's how we use git-history. So now let's take a look at start-transcript. So I'll type in help start-transcript, and that'll show me the help file for using start-transcript. And basically, this is a transcription tool that allows you to basically capture everything that's in the console window. So not only the commands, but it also has any output. If you have errors, it'll capture errors. So it's a great tool for debugging things as you're running through commands. So we'll go down here. We'll type in start-transcript to start the transcription process. In this case, I'm specifying the path location that I wanted to go to inside the transcripts folder. I'm putting the -append because that'll then add this to any transcription file, to the end of any transcription file that I have. So click add. So now that's started that process. So I'm just going to type in get-service. I'm find the properties where the status is stopped just to create some traffic here. And we'll see that it goes through and it'll show that output. Now what I want to do is I want to stop the transcription process and open up that file in Notepad. So when I open that file up, we see there's our transcription. So notice at the top, it does give us a lot of information. Who was running this, under what context, from what machine, the application, a bunch of different pieces of information that you can use as you refer back to this. And then if we go down, we see that, okay, the command that we ran is up there. We see the output. So this is a great way to track your work and to be able to keep a record of things that are going on. Another way that this really helps out is, let's say you're running a command and you're getting a bunch of errors and you want to work with somebody on your team to help you troubleshoot this. You could send them the transcript file. It would have the commands you're running and the errors, and they could look at that and be able to give you feedback. So that's get history and start-transcript. Why is PowerShell different? Because objects make PowerShell different. It's because PowerShell is an object oriented language. Unlike other scripting languages that rely on parsing text to get things done, PowerShell uses objects as its output. So if we think about PowerShell, we already talked about that it's not text based, that it's based on being object orientated. Is that with objects, they have properties that make them up and they have methods that you can perform actions against them. So if we take, for example, think about an apple as an object. So with an apple, we know that the color is red. We know that its shape is somewhat round, and we know that its skin is edible. These are all properties of an apple. So if you were to hold an apple, you would be able to see, okay, hey, this is kind of round. Hey, the color is red if it's a red apple. Oh, if I try eating it, I can tell that the skin is edible in that. So just like the objects that we work with in PowerShell, they have properties as well. So the best way to visualize objects in PowerShell is to view the data in a table format. PowerShell places all of the data from commands into a collection or a table to store that data. In the case of what we have here, we're using get-service, and it's providing us information about the services on a computer. So each row of the table is an object with properties or attributes assigned to it. These properties all have values that are stored in the table and then can be accessed as we're working with PowerShell. And this is the stuff that we're really looking for. This is how we really start doing work with PowerShell. So how do you find all of these properties attached in an object so you can work with them? That's where the third command get-member comes in. So with get-member, this allows us to get the properties and methods of objects that are the output of a specific command. So it's used to see what makes up an object. So to use this, we use get-service and then we pipe that into get-member, and that will show us all of the properties that are available on an object. Single commands are great. They provide us information, can do work, and a host of other things. However, the real power in PowerShell comes when we use the pipeline. So pipelining PowerShell is a way to send the output of one command into a second command. And this allows you to do more complex work. So in this case, we get something and then we take the output of that and we may do something like sort that something. And then from that output, we then do something. So we can use our data along the pipeline, all of the objects passing through, to be able to get work done. So when we're looking at pipelining in PowerShell, we see the example that we showed during our introduction. We showed you where we took get-service, we piped that into where-object that allowed us to simply pull out all of the objects where the status was equal to stopped. And then what we could do is we could pipe that into a start-service. In the real world, this command might not be exactly what you want to do. You might want to do some further filtering, but it shows you the power of pipelining and how we can use information going through the pipeline to do work. So that's where our next demo is going to come in. We're going to jump into using the pipeline. So we'll show you how to do basic pipelining so that you have an understanding of how the pipeline works. So in this demo, we're going to take a look at how we use get-member to find object properties within PowerShell. Through the process, we'll take a look at working with the pipeline and things involved with sending data and objects through the pipeline. So let's jump into our demo. In the PowerShell console, I'm going to go ahead and type in help get-member to take a look at the get-member command. So we see that this is a command that gets the properties and methods of objects. So we'll go ahead and type in get-service. And how we use get-member is that we take the command, we run it, and we pipe it into get-member. So what's important here is that The command has to run properly for get-member to be able to find the membership. In this case, get-service is going to do that for us. So we see what it comes back with. It comes back with a list of alias properties. So these are aliases for the property names. We see their name is equal to service name. We have methods, and then we have all of the properties that are available on that object. So besides the things that we normally just see when we use get-service, we have a number of other properties that have values that are associated with those objects as they come through. So there's a lot more information that's attached to the data that we have available to us than what we're just seeing being output to the screen. So if we go ahead and type in get-service, pipe that into a select object, I'm going to take the name, machine name, and status because that's what I want to see as my output. So you see that it's come back with just the name, machine name, and status. So now if I run get-service again, and then we do that same select command, and if we send that into get-member, notice that my membership is shrunk. This is really important here because as soon as you use select object, what that does is it selects all of those properties out of the objects that are coming across the pipeline. So as soon as you select out just machine name, name, and status, the rest of the properties that were associated are no longer there. So we can see that in the table. So that's really important as you're working with this. So now if we type this in again, but this time we're using where-object, looking for the status where it's equal to stopped, it'll bring back the information as we're used to seeing with the stop services. So now if I take that same command, get-service, running it against two different computers, client 01 and DC01, and I'm going to use that where-object. And that way, what it's going to do is the objects that are coming across the pipeline are only those objects where the service is stopped. Then it's going to go in and it's going to do a select-object. So it's going to pull out just the name, machine name, and status to pass along to the next command. And the next command is going to then sort that information using sort-object based on the property being the machine name. And so when we run that, we see there's our output. So we have the name of all of our services. We see the machine name, client 01 stopped, and we see that it's sorted it by machine name. So that's how we can use get-member to find those properties. So as you're working with commands and you're wanting to find more information, type the command and pipe it into get-member. And then you can use those other commands like select-object, where-object, and sort-object to further refine what's coming through the pipeline.